Hey folks, one of the cool features of the replicated platform is the fact that we support deploying your modern applications into your customers' air-gapped network environments. Now, traditionally that meant something very specific, right? But there are more and more use cases that require the use of our air-gapped capabilities. And I'll talk a little bit about those a little later in the video. There was one limitation of the air-gapped capability, which was that it really only supported our embedded cluster installations and our admin console installations into existing clusters, and didn't really support our methods for deploying with Helm. Well, recently we've made some changes to improve that, so I'm going to walk through those today. I'm logging in here to our replicated download portal, and this is a customer-specific URL and password. I'm logging in as my customer Giglo for the application Slacker News. And I go right here to this existing cluster with Helm set of instructions. And I have instructions here that help me get all the images for that application into a local registry. So I'm going to start on my local workstation here. I'm going to pull all of the images. So I'm pulling the images that our air-gap builder identified as being part of this application. So in the same way that the air-gap bundle is built for the embedded cluster, for the admin console, we go through and we take all the images we find to include in that bundle, and we create these instructions off of that. So this is going to be the complete list of images that you want to make sure your customer moves from the internet to either their air-gapped environments registry or in this case, I'm not physically air-gapped, but I have a pretty tightly isolated network that can only access my internal registry and be accessed from certain hosts within my network. So those images are pulling over, and then after they've pulled, I'm going to tag them. You can see by entering in the name of my local registry here, these copy-paste commands have my registry name filled in. So just nice little nicety for me. Just grabbing the last one there for the replicated SDK. So I tag all of them, and then I will push them over to my local registry, which is a Harbor registry running here in my lab. So I'll push all of these over. And I mentioned there's a couple of use cases that I wanted to talk about where maybe it's not the traditional like Department of Defense, energy utility, et cetera, like physically isolated networks that we think of when we think of air-gap. There's a couple of different scenarios where this comes up pretty often. One is just generally people don't want their production environments to be pulling anything from the internet, right? So they want the images, the container images, to either come from their local registry or to be already contained like you would do with an embedded cluster air-gap. The other thing is they might have some policies that say, you need to come from my registry because I do certain things in my registry to make sure that my environments are protected. So this is a Harbor registry. One of the registries people often use is their private registry. You can see I can set it up with an image scanner, and I can configure that images have to be signed before they can be pulled, or they can only be pulled, they can't be pulled if they show certain kinds of CVEs. So these are other types of policies that people are going to have in their organizations that would require getting the images from somewhere other than the replicated proxy or some other registry on the internet. So again, this air-gap functionality is really good for that. You can see here, those 4 images are now in the registry. So I'm going to pop over to my Bastion host. This one has access to both the Kubernetes cluster and to this one happens to have, I can get to it from my workstation, and it does have internet access. The Bastion host that your customers have may not have internet access. You may have to go through these couple of steps here where I'm going to pull the Helm chart directly. You may have to pull the chart on your workstation and copy it up there. So I'm going to get the values from the Helm file. And I'm going to edit it to, for what I need to use it in my environment. Of course, I'm wrote a script to do that so that you didn't have to watch me edit a bunch of things. So let's look at it. You can see now registry.shortrib.dev, registry. They're all, everything's getting pulled now from my registry using some pull secrets that are pre-set up in that namespace. Again, some people are going to have that all automated so that they don't have to do it as part of this new install. Others are going to have to do it before the install, but they're going to know that because they have to do that every time, they install an application. So now I can use that values file to run my pre-flight checks. Which should all pass. They do. And then I can do my install. Containers are creating. Some of them are already running. And if I just do a get pod for Slacker news, you can see pulling from my local registry. So now fully isolated, running on this cluster, not needing to get at anything related to Replicated or related to you. The Replicated SDK is running, or at least when we looked at it, was on its way to running. It is running now, and the Replicated SDK has within it a local copy of the license that it's going to be able to use, so that all your calls to the SDK that are looking for things like, license fields, license expiration, what version am I running, those sorts of things, those are all going to work even in this air-gapped environment, because those are passed, when we build that Helm chart, those are passed as values over to the Replicated SDK. So that was it. I just wanted to show you this air-gap capability. Number one, isn't just for your traditional air gaps that you might be thinking of, and number two, now supports the use of, use with the Helm method of installation.